And we're good.
Oh, we're live. All right. Welcome back to the Pick Six podcast. I was waiting for the red light to go on there. I'm Katie Mox, joined by Will Brinson and Sportsline's finest, RJ and Alex Selelnick, a.k.a. Propstarz. If you like winning picks, make sure you sign up at sportsline.com. Use the promo code PICK to get your first month for just $1. On the last episode, Brinson, Brady, and Lige went deep on Aaron Rodgers, his injury, and what is next for the Jets and their quarterback. Check it out on our YouTube channel or anywhere that you get your podcasts. All right, guys. Much like my start to this show, our start last week in week one was a little rough. We didn't exactly kill it, chalking it up to maybe some week one chaos. I went 2-6. Brinson, you were what, 2-4? Propstarz 2-4. RJ 2-5. We all won 2 bets.
I've got a my best bets article up on CBSSports.com. Came out Thursday morning. No Thursday Night Football bet, but you can check it out. I think 5 or 6 of them. And if you're a Taylor Swift fan,
yes, you are.
Which I am. I'm a Swiftie for sure. And also, by the way, shout out to me. Way to do your job, Brinson. I put all my best bets up on sportsline.com as well. You can go there and use promo code PICK for the first month for $1. RJ, I don't know if I emailed it, so I'm sure you were like, wow, great job. Way to do what you're way to do the bare minimum, Brinson. Good job.
You said last week, are you proud of me when you got 1 pick in? I said I'd be proud of you when you get all your picks in. And Brinson, I am proud of you.
Yes, that's all I wanted to hear. But if you go and check out my best bets article, so I don't know if you guys know this. There's a Taylor Swift. Alex, are you a Swiftie? Are you a Swiftie?
I know she owns cats, so any feline fans is a
fan of yours.
Yeah.
Okay,
He's a champion of the kitty.
Well, so there's Gannett Media is doing a thing where they're hiring a Taylor Swift correspondent. Like your only job is to write about Taylor Swift. Like you would be like. You do like fan stories. You follow her on tour. You write about like rumors and like blah blah blah. And so that was like the intro to my best bets piece. And I was like, well, what do you do? Like, do you weave like Taylor Swift lyrics or Taylor Swift songs like into your writing? And if you want to check it out, I will give a Brinson buck to anybody who can identify all of the Taylor Swift songs that I wove into my 1,000-word best bets article. Wow. It is double digits. I promise you that. So it's like an Easter egg hunt.
Okay, that is really fun, and a fun way to deflect from the 2 and 4.
That's exactly what I was doing.
All right, so we're gonna get into week 2 here, give our best bets, but obviously, guys, note that lines and odds are subject to change all the way up until game time. We are hitting these lines about 2 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, so make sure that you check with your book before tailing. RJ, let me just ask you though, week 1 was wacky, right? Week 1s are always wacky, but this one felt even crazier. Any key takeaways?
Yeah, it was a historic week 1 for underdogs. Underdogs typically aren't doing that well in week 1. And strategy wise, I think I lean toward underdogs typically in week 1 because, I think the market overestimates its confidence in things. But then of course the favorites that I decided to take were pretty bad. I was like Denver at home is always a lock. Sean Payton will be better with that offense. Did not turn out to be the case. Seahawks, one of my favorite teams this offseason, completely laid an egg. So I had some good underdog picks on the Sportsline site, but I didn't really feature them much in this podcast. So definitely going to be a change moving forward. I think this week I have a majority underdogs.
Propstarz on the props, anything that you took away from week 1?
Yeah, there were a lot of discounts in the prop market. I tried to take advantage of that, ended up kind of biting me a little bit. I would definitely think that I underestimated sort of how sloppy the football was going to be. It took a lot of time for these teams to get into a rhythm, 1 quarter, 1 half even. I think it really benefited the teams that were able to get some preseason reps. Your San Francisco 49ers, Katie, obviously being very well-oiled machine, looked like they were in mid-season form. Brock Purdy getting to play in the final 2 preseason games certainly benefited them. And if you look at the teams who didn't really have much preseason action, it was a struggle. So I wish I had been a little more conservative. And I wish I had kind of just focused a little more on unders, I guess.
Well, there were also like a couple. We actually I take that back. There was really only like 2 games, I guess, Chargers and Dolphins, and then Patriots and Eagles, where you kind of felt like, man, Yeah, that like not like I had the wrong side, but just like that could have gone either way, right? I mean, like I'm doing the thing with Brinson versus Coach on CBS Sports Spotlight, and he went 3-2, and I went 1-4 on those picks. I don't know how I went 2-4 on these picks and 1-4 on those, but whatever.
Spreading them out.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, like I already know how it's going to start from Coach. He's like, and like doing like all kinds of wrestling stuff, and I'm like, yeah, like I'm trying to decide like how aggressive I want to be in my
aggressive.
Yeah, but I mean, but like so we had those cool graphics they used last week to like first week. It's like, oh, this is awesome. But then like I saw the new graphics look like they're putting a record in big font, like with the same.
Where he's standing like this.
Yeah, and it's like 3-2, and it's like I'm like 1-4, like it's like I'm already kind of dreading that. So
all right, well let's wash ourselves of week one and get right into week two here.
Real quick, the people in this podcast know for years and years the strategy has been fade Brinson anyway. So it's just the masses are learning that.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I either run hot or I run cold, and like I ran cold in week one. I just think like. I mean, road dogs. I don't know. I feel like it was like if you look at like I was looking at like the picks pool that I'm in, and it was like the people who did well last week. I'm like, I see who did well last week. Wasn't the sharp people. Anyway, moving on.
Well, look, I think everybody that I see except for one person got killed on week one. I will say, Brinson, did you get a haircut? You're looking pretty sharp.
No, I did trim my beard though. Thank you.
Oh, do you do it yourself?
I did trim my beard myself.
Okay,
I did. I mean, it was getting pretty robust,
mm-hmm.
and it was one of those where like I don't know if you know the Titans executive, is it Rustin Webster? Who no, I can't remember who. God, what was the guy's name? But he didn't have a beard, but he had this like goatee. But he like grew it like it would let it like grow over his lip and like up, so it looked like it looked like a Bane mask. Yeah, mine was getting a little too like
close to that.
Yeah.
All right, let's get this moving on here because we got a lot of games that we have to go through. First up, looking at the Ravens versus the Bengals. Bengals -3.5. RJ, you and I got this line at 3 a little bit better, but I don't mind laying the field goal with the Bengals here. The Ravens defense, of course, made a complete nightmare for CJ Stroud in his debut. But Joe Shiesty is not a rookie quarterback like Stroud. And yeah, he looked horrible, all right, in week one. He had a career worst, I believe, 82 passing yards, but no preseason, coming off of an injury, and the Browns just seemed to have the Bengals number. Now, I will say I took the Bengals last week and it blew up in my face, but I do think that this offense is going to bounce back. The Ravens are pretty banged up after week one. No J.K. Dobbins, which is huge, but also some injuries to their O-line, which are a little bit more concerning for me. So I'm laying the 3. What do you think, RJ?
Yeah, this opened 2.5. Quickly, I got bet up to 3.5, and now we're starting to see it creep back down to 3. I think FanDuel was the first one to put 3 back up. Now a few other books are starting to do that, so we'll see if it settles around 3. I said on the Early Edge NFL preview on Tuesday that at 3.5 I wasn't going to play it, but at 3 I like the Bengals, and so the Bengals -3 are a best bet with that available at FanDuel. Now, the new look Baltimore offense never got going against Houston despite the score looking like they did with all those points. And Cincy's offense, let's just chalk that up. They're always bad in Cleveland. Last year they had 220-something yards of offense. They went out the next week and scored 42 points. I don't think this is indicative of the Cincy team we're going to see throughout the rest of the year. And the weather didn't help last week. Cincy's pass defense was solid. The rush defense goes from facing Nick Chubb to Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and an injured offensive line that probably is going to be without Ronnie Stanley and Tyler Linderbaum in this game. Key injuries for the Ravens already rearing their ugly head like they do every year for the Ravens somehow. So those guys are hurt. There's guys in the defensive backfield that are hurt for the Ravens, and it all lines up for the Bengals to go and win this game for me as long as Burrow isn't completely washed and needs another week to get healthy. But I think he's going to be fine. Look to lay the points at 3 if you can get Cincy -3 when you can at your book because Baltimore's injuries are already stacking up.
Yeah, I mean, I lean towards Cincinnati here as well. We've seen, last year they lost 17-20 to the Cowboys in week 2. In 2021, they also lost 17-20. I mean, I was hoping this is going to back me up. It's not, but I do think that they've struggled coming out of the gates is what I'm saying. And that's my only concern here is that it's not like Burrow is like washed, and I don't think he is. It's just that maybe they're going to be slow once again on offense early in the season. At the same time, I didn't think Baltimore's offense looked that great against Houston.
No.
Like, Zay Flowers is the truth, and he's awesome. And he's gonna. I think that we had 30-1, and we were talking about as a rookie of the year bet. Like, even though the quarterback's gonna be a problem, like that dude should be he's probably gonna be, I don't know, 10. He's under 10-1. It was 11-1, I think, coming out of week one. And Lamar could get cooking here. I just don't know if the Cincinnati defense is where Lamar is going to get going. Joe Burrow's had success against the Ravens in his career, and I think it might be one of those sort of like NFC West or the AFC North where Burrow just can't figure out the Bengals.
Yeah.
And I mean, by the Browns, excuse me, but just has the Ravens number for whatever reason. So I would lean Bengals here, almost put it as a best bet.
All right, from one favorite last week that laid an egg to another one. The Chiefs are -3.5 favorites over the Jags. This was 3, which I liked better, but I'm actually still going to lay the 3.5 with Kansas City here. The Chiefs coming off of a completely humiliating loss on opening night. Like, yeah, I'm going to take the defending champions all day long. You know, head to head, Kansas City has won 7 in a row, and that streak also includes their postseason victory over the Jags in the divisional round. I think that Chris Jones and Travis Kelce should be a go this weekend. I'd be surprised if both of them are out, but I'm hoping really that we get Travis Kelce back, because I don't know if Kadarius Toney can even show his face anywhere in Kansas City, let alone on the field. I do think that they're going to bounce back. I was a bit underwhelmed, sorry, Brinson, by the Jags against the Colts. I do think that they could have handled them more easily than what they put forward. So I just don't think that the Chiefs go down 0-2 this season. I think that there's no way that Patrick Mahomes lets his receivers, drop all those balls. They're well coached with Andy Reid. So it should be a tight game, but I still like the Chiefs -3.5. Well, you're a Jags guy.
I'm torn here, though. I think I'm probably going to end up picking the Chiefs in my picks pool. I don't have a best bet here. The Jaguars, I thought, they moved up to number 3 in Pete Prisco's power rankings, which is a substantial move. You can listen to that show on Tuesday. Pete actually, we didn't talk to him about it, but I mean, we were making fun of him for it because he moved him up so high. I thought scoring 31 on the road in a divisional game in week 1, like a really tough game that we've seen the Colts struggle with when they play Jacksonville. I thought I was impressed with Jacksonville, but I worry a little bit about the defense here, RJ, because it's just like I'm not sure either defense is going to stop anybody, even with Chris Jones back. I said on the early odds show 51, I like the over there, and I think it's creeped up like a half a point or something. I still would probably lean towards the over, even to that heat down in South Florida or North Florida.
Oh, right. You said it was going to be like ridiculously hot.
It's going to be steamy.
Yeah, the Jaguars defense might be a problem. The Indy offense ended in Jacksonville territory 7 times. Ended the game on the 1-yard line, easily could have covered that game. Anthony Richardson goes out. Gardner Minshew's not able to get it done. But you could see Richardson running in from the 1-yard line and scoring the touchdown there to cut it within 3. Kansas City's defense, really, really good last week, despite the Chris Jones absence. I mean, they put 14 points to Detroit's offense. Now they're getting an offensive line. Already had questions about on the Jacksonville side with the tackle situation, and Brandon Scherff is hurt. If Brandon Scherff isn't playing, what's the state of that offensive line against probably Chris Jones and the regular pass rushers for Kansas City? So it seems like Kansas City really is the only way to go here if you're going to play this game. Would play it at 3, but now that it's up to 3.5 everywhere, just going to be a lean for me.
Yeah, a little dicier.
Alex, anything on KC and Jags?
Yeah, really interested to see Trevor Lawrence's target distribution. Week 1, Christian Kirk was the odd man out, 3 targets, 1 reception, 9 yards. Saw the huge triple-digit game from Calvin Ridley, certainly a wide receiver alpha 1. But the targets after Ridley is what's really interesting. Evan Ingram, Zay Jones pretty much got the same target share that they had last season. Christian Kirk only was in on, I believe, 50% or less than 50% of the snaps. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. That's a potentially spot that I'm waiting to see what his line opens at. But yeah, at home against this Chiefs defense, I think they have a trouble covering the slot. So I'm potentially looking to buy low on Christian Kirk, and in what, in my opinion, is an advantageous matchup for him in week 2.
All right. Packers and Falcons, maybe my favorite bet of the week. The line has shifted dramatically. Bye, RJ. The Falcons were plus 1.5 this morning, and the line has already moved up to Atlanta minus 1.5. I said in my picks column that and I got it in before it, that it should be, that you should get the Falcons now while they're dogs and get the money line, because they were going to close. This line was going to close the pick 'em. It swung it by even more, like a full 1.5 points, which is just wild. I think the Falcons, I think the Packers are a good team. I really liked what I saw to Jordan Love in week 1. Thought the defense was impressive. Aaron Jones, fantastic. He's a little banged up. I think they said it was Jay Glazer reported it was mostly precautionary, but I really liked what I saw to the Falcons, particularly their defense. I thought Atlanta's defense, people are really underrating the additions they made between Calais Campbell and Jesse Bates, and DJ, not DJ Ongule. I'm forgetting who. DJ, who am I thinking of? Anyway, point being is they added a bunch of veterans. I completely blacked out there for a second. Sorry. They added a bunch of veterans, and I think you're going to just see this Atlanta team keep it's going to be a really steady defense. Desmond Ridder has never thrown an interception at the NFL level. He just doesn't. He doesn't turn the ball over.
He hasn't thrown past the line of scrimmage yet, though, Brinson.
Right, exactly, but he doesn't turn the ball over. David Onyemata. Sorry, I don't know why I thought DJ was the guy, the name I was going for there. And I think when you see what, just it's sort of like Tennessee light, as I was saying. I think the Falcons are exactly what I thought they were going to be, and I'm not saying that makes me right, but it just makes me confident that they can win these games that I think they should win, particularly at home against a team like Green Bay, where you see this total at 40.5. Green Bay scored 38 against the Bears. This is not expected to be a shootout. This is supposed to be a low-scoring game. Both teams are going to run the ball a ton. Atlanta's going to play ball control and try to play good defense. Now, Green Bay might do the same thing. I just think I trust Desmond Ridder maybe a little bit more than Jordan Love to not turn it over when being forced into those situations. RJ, I think you've got a best bet here as well.
I do not. But I
thought you were Falcons.
No, he said no.
When the line moved, you got off Falcons. Yeah.
No, it might have been another one. I kind of lean Green Bay here. I understand what you're saying with Atlanta. I love played well around limitations at receiver, losing Aaron Jones in the second half. The reason I don't want to play them and I'm worried about this line move is that who knows who's going to be available this week for them. It seems like the market's expecting some key absences there. Atlanta defense had a good game, but it was against a relatively easy pass offense. Jordan Love really, the metrics graded him out well for that game against Chicago. I know it is Chicago, but Atlanta's defense I'm not that worried about yet. This is going to be a tougher test for them. Atlanta's pass offense, not scary at all. I mean, what I worry about with them is what if they fall behind? Are they capable of coming back? Because they're not throwing to Drake London. They're not throwing to Kyle Pitts, really.
And they don't care about fantasy football either. I don't know if you heard.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't care.
They all say, we don't care about your fantasy team.
No, but Arthur, it's like, hey, no targets for Drake London. Arthur's just like, Drake London doesn't care. We don't care. Think about fantasy football. It's like, well, they just first round pick. Just throw the football.
He should have cued the GM in on his offensive philosophy before they went out and spent top 10 picks on these guys, because that's just a waste of a pick if you're not going to go to these guys. Green Bay's defense, best unit in the game for me. And it's possible, if guys are healthy, that Green Bay's offense is the second best. That's why I would lean to the Packers in this game. Market move is likely the injury pessimism. Monitor the Friday reports, but if things look trending decently for Green Bay, I might go with Green Bay here.
All right. Well, from the other team that Green Bay owns, the Chicago Bears at Tampa. Tampa laying 3. Tampa surprised a lot of people by beating the Vikings in week 1. Although I think the Vikings still played better. They just had some bad turnovers in that first half that they weren't able to overcome. But Propstarz, you've isolated Mike Evans in this matchup.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield looked very comfortable throwing to Mike Evans. I love him over 51.5 receiving yards, had double-digit targets, 28% target share in the game. I was also impressed with the Bucs offensive line, not from a run blocking standpoint, but from pass blocking. They allowed 3 hurries. They gave up they had the 4th best pass blocking efficiency grade of any team in week 1, according to PFF. This Bears defense is absolutely awful. I think that's what a lot of us expected coming into the year. I think Mike Evans is going to continue to serve as that number 1 target for Baker Mayfield. Elite usage. This game has some sneaky shootout potential as well, in my opinion. The Bucs cannot run the ball whatsoever, so I think the key to win is to throw the ball, and they're going to rely heavily on Mike Evans in what is a very advantageous matchup. So love him over 51.5 receiving yards this week.
RJ, do you think Tampa's going to be better than projected?
No, I don't think they played as well as people think they did in that game last week against Minnesota. Gave up a ton of passing yards, got benefited from some bad Kirk Cousins turnovers, and maybe it turns out they're just a defense that can create bad turnovers. I guess we'll see moving forward, but the offense wasn't particularly well in that game against a Minnesota defense everybody hates. So I don't think that Tampa played that well despite the win. And this is, I said on the Sunday early edge show that this was my favorite look ahead of the week. Take Tampa because they were +1.5, and Chicago had no business being favored on the road against anyone. It's now in 2.5 in the markets, but if you get 3, I would take Chicago there. Maybe they're closer to the team the market expects, and less the team that they look like in week 1 and that I expected, and maybe they'll get things figured out. This might be a better matchup for them, especially for the offense after Green Bay completely stifled them. Not easier for the Chicago defense unless they're getting more pressure on the quarterback, which they need to do here because Baker Mayfield kind of folds under pressure. The key thing for me is the weather in this game too. Monitor the weather because it looks like it might rain. And if it's a rainy day, I really don't trust Baker throwing balls. And I do trust Justin Fields running around and picking up first downs and potentially getting them back in the second half. So I think I'm going to look to Chicago in this game, but I want to get the +3 and fade the full overreaction on this line moving all the way from the Tampa Bay +1.5 look ahead.
That is interesting because there are a bunch of games like that where it's you just have those kind of overreactions based off of like one team looks like trash in week 1 and one team looks really good in week 1, and then you can sort of get a nice value in a week 2 line. For example, the Buffalo Bills hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders go to Denver and beat the Broncos outright. The Bills get 4 snaps of Aaron Rodgers. Jimmy G, that's right. There he is. Katie's man. Kelly's man. The Raiders get, the Jets lose Aaron Rodgers 4 snaps into the game, and the Bills can't beat Zach Wilson. And as such, like we talked about this on the early odds show on Monday, it's like if the Bills win that game handily and the offense looks good, this line against the Raiders is like 11 or 12.
Yes.
Like this line gets jacked up just like if the Jets stink or something bad happens to them and they can't protect, that Cowboys line is going to move. Little did we expect Rodgers out for the year. For me, I have a best bet on the Bills here. I think we see I think I heard my buddy Drew Dinsick, aka Will Capper, talking about this in the deep dive. The one concern I think, and I hadn't really thought about this, so he said it. The one concern I think you have with the Bills here is, does Sean McDermott try to rein in Josh Allen too much and really pull back and like let it be a run heavy game? Or is this like okay, we don't have to play the Jets. They're sort of Allen's kryptonite. Let's cut loose against a Raiders defense is certainly questionable. I'm going to go with the latter. First home game for the Bills of the season. I think Allen has a huge game against the Raiders. I like Bills. You can get it at -8.5 available at FanDuel, I believe. We saw 9.5 up there, but you can find it 8.5 out in the market.
Yeah, it was 9.5. Most places, in FanDuel was the first one to have it down to 8.5, and so I was definitely on board. Well, I think another book might have had it there, but now the market has moved to 8.5, and I think there might even be an 8 somewhere because it seems like the market is moving against Buffalo, and I don't know why. Once the look ahead, not the look ahead, the Monday line was 10 before they played on Monday night, and then it dropped to 8.5 coming out of that game when they look bad. But it's the Jets; they're going to look bad against the Jets seemingly every year. Now that the Jets have this elite defense and that they just can't conquer for whatever reason, much like the Burrow and the Browns situation we talked about earlier. They're going to be fine moving forward. I don't see how they could move to a run focused attack because that's not how they're built. James Cook is their RB1. He's not a 20 carry kind of guy, so they're going to have to throw it. And I think that plays well into this Raiders defense, which got really lucky with this week 1 opponent. They did not throw downfield at all. That's not going to be the case with Josh Allen. He was throwing downfield into coverages that he should not have been against the Jets. He's definitely going to do it against these Raiders that don't have much to worry about in the defensive backfield there. So we will see how that goes. The one worry about the Raiders, which is curious to me why this line is dropping, is that Devontae Adams did not practice on Wednesday. Jacoby Myers did not practice on Wednesday, both dealing with injuries. If they trend toward playing, maybe you think that the Raiders can backdoor this game. I think this is a Raiders team that's going to score 17 or less against a mad Buffalo team, and the Buffalo offense is going to go out and get 30. So my model said, you said, Brinson, if they'd have won that game, it would have been 11.5, 12. My model has it 11.5. I'm not adjusting them down too far for that game. Love Buffalo -8.5 as a best bet.
I agree with you guys, but I'm taking the under, and for kind of similar reasons that you both just laid out. I do think this is going to be more of a ground and pound game, certainly for the Raiders because of the injuries. They're just going to be giving the ball to Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs also forced the most missed tackles in week 1, and the Jets did have some success running against Buffalo. And I do kind of think after Allen's 3 interceptions on Monday night, they might played a little bit more conservative with him, at least in the beginning, try to get his confidence back up because that was really, really bad. The Raiders, of course, are not as strong as New York up front, but I do think they have enough to create some pressure for Allen. I didn't have this in there, but Allen to throw an interception, I think should probably be on all of our bet cards.
What's the percentage or the number of juice?
Well, let me pull it up. I just came up with that one right now. I'm
Minus
taking the
240.
under. Oh, 240.
No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea. I haven't looked. Yeah. Propstarz, you got a bet on here too? Or did you already give it out?
I did not. Yeah, we're backing Gabriel Davis over 42.5 receiving yards. I agree with you guys. This is a great spot for this Bills offense. Gabe Davis, 100% route participation, played 98% of the snaps in week 1. That was a trend that carried over from last season. This guy does not come off of the field whatsoever. It was a very tough week 1 matchup. I actually faded him, worked out well against that incredibly stingy Jets secondary. Not the case against this Las Vegas Raiders secondary. Josh Allen had one of the worst games of his career, in my opinion. You give me any wide receiver in the NFL, you tell me he's going to run a route on every Josh Allen drop back, and he has the deepest ADOT of any player on Buffalo's offense, and he's going to go. I'm going to take him anytime it's under 50 yards. So this is as much of a bet on the situation as it is on Gabriel Davis, who I also am high on as well. So I like Gabriel Davis over 42.5 receiving yards. I think he gets loose for at least a couple big plays.
By the way, Josh Allen over half an interception plus 105.
Taking it.
Okay.
Lock
That's not,
me in
man.
for
I'll tell you
one of
what, when you see that, that tells you that the Vegas does not believe in this Raiders defense. And Josh Allen, longest completion over under 36.5. The under is juice minus 120. I mean, you could correlate that with Gabe Davis over too, where it's like just thinking deep shots down there.
He's not going to take 3 deep shots like that. He's not going to have 3 interceptions, but plus 105 for him to do kind of what he does frequently. I'm taking.
Yeah, sure. No, it's just not. It wouldn't be unlikely. I just think they're gonna be like, look, y'all need to understand that we can throw the ball deep. At the same time, like anyway, we need to take a break.
Yeah.
I was going to go into a whole thing, a tangent about like why the deep ball is like there's articles out there about like why it's disappeared and all that. And it's true. But before we do any more tangents, we'll come back and talk about some teams being home dogs. But reminder, this Sunday, we can't wait for another NFL on CBS doubleheader. The early games are headlined by Chiefs, Jaguars, and the Raiders taking on the Bills. Then the Jets will try to beat a daunting Dallas defense with their backup QB, Zach Wilson. It all begins at noon Eastern with JB and the guys on the NFL Today. All hail Sunday. The NFL is on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. Coming up next, Colts, Texans. Oh, my. Who we taking? We'll tell you next.
We need the sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
All right, back on Pick 6, and we are continuing to look at the early slate of games. Next up, Seattle Seahawks at the Lions. Lions are favored minus 5.5. Now, I looked this morning. This line has budged a little bit to 4.5. The look-ahead lines were 2.5, 3. And then, of course, Detroit comes out, beats Kansas City. Seattle lays an egg against the Rams. And we saw a huge line shift. On Monday, we all kind of talked about leaning towards this plus 5.5 with Seattle because I wasn't overly impressed with what Detroit's offense did. Really, the Kansas City Chiefs beat themselves. This total is at 47. Now that it's at 4.5, I'm kind of shying away from it. I like the 5.5 better. RJ, any leans or thoughts on this game?
Yeah, the 4, I would be all on board, especially at 5.5, and even 6 was available in the market. It's now come down. It seems like people are also not quite buying.
I still see 5.5. Am I reading that
I
wrong?
see like 5.5 at one spot. I see 5 at one spot, but I see a lot of places have 4.5, and FanDuel currently has 4.5 right now. So you can get it. I mean, 5 is one of the least key numbers you have. So, but the difference between 4.5 and 5.5 isn't as great. You know, moving that full point as it would be 6.5, 7.5, or even 6.5, 5.5, because you're moving through the 6. So that's part of the thing. The what's happening there. And it's an impressive win for Detroit, beating Kansas City just 14 points without the pick 6. The offense didn't play as well as you would expect, considering Kansas City was missing Chris Jones. Kansas City also averaged 5.1 yards per play, despite their receivers dropping dropping all those passes. If those guys knew how to catch, I mean, what are they averaging? 6 yards per play, maybe 6.5. It was an embarrassing second half for Seattle in that game on both sides of the ball. Played so badly that you just can't expect them to be that team moving forward. Something was off there, and I think they'll get it corrected. But the problem is injuries are mounting. They were already dealing with injuries in the defensive backfield there, and now the offensive tackles both got hurt. They signed 41-year-old Jason Peters, probably should not be out on playing field, but he might be forced into action, especially if he's just a backup now and somebody else gets hurt. So if even one of those offensive tackles is out, I'm not sure I can back Seattle, even though I really wanted to at the higher number. And if both are out, which might be the way it's trending, I think Abe Lucas might already be on IR, then I don't want any part of him.
Yeah, I tend to think I'd look at the Lions here. And I'm really interested to see
4.5, 5.5.
I don't really care. I think Seattle might be bad. Like Seattle's both tackles are missing. Detroit's pass rush is good. I mean, Detroit's on a 10-day break. Like they have the weapons on offense to really do some damage to Seattle's defense, I think. And it's possible that like I'm really fascinated to see the next 2 weeks for the Detroit Lions. Yeah. Seattle at home and Atlanta at home. And you're trying to sort of validate this win on the road against the Chiefs. They're 10th in Pete's power rankings. I thought that was a little low considering that win you get on the opening day. Like you got to hold serve at home and go to 3-0. Like look out. They might be the best team in the NFC. No offense. Third best team in the NFC. Second best team in the NFC.
Let's pump the brakes on that.
Well, let's see what happens with the Rams and the 49ers before we get too excited about the Niners. Just kidding. Okay. Yeah. I'm just running my mouth unnecessarily.
Let's do that. Okay. This is one of the most interesting, I think, games on the board in terms of flipping is the Colts at the Texans. This line was a pick'em with the Colts -1, and now it's flipped. Texans -1.5. Over under 40. Brinson, you like Indianapolis here?
I do. And I think it's a little unnerving when you see the line move to the Texans are now favored, and I'm not exactly sure
why.
1.5. Yeah. I mean, like that's like the line's like steaming the other way with a total of 39.5. That's obviously concerning. You don't want to be like on the opposite side of that. I like the idea of getting 1.5. I think I'd probably just take the money line with the Colts at this point, or wait till it gets to a plus number or find a plus number on the money line out there. I just thought what we saw from the Anthony Richardson versus what we saw from CJ Stroud, to me, the Colts look like a better team and more prepared early on to do damage with their rookie quarterback, just in terms of like, I don't think that Richardson's a better passer, but he can run the ball so much more effectively. He was dangerous in the red zone. He threw a touchdown pass to Michael Pittman, but it was a swing pass or a screen pass or a swing pass. It's not like he was throwing the ball downfield. It's like, this is one where like, if either team gets behind, like load up on the other team live. Because I mean, like either of these rookies coming from behind would be a problem. But I lean towards the Colts. I think the Colts win the game outright. I think the Texans coaching staff is really good. I just trust Anthony Richardson more with his coaching staff than I do CJ Stroud with his coaching staff. And Alex, you got a bet here as well, right?
Yeah, I do. I think we see a lot of Houston Texans running back Dameon Pierce in this game, going over 74.5 combined rushing and receiving yards. It was a tough week 1 matchup against a very stout Ravens front seven, but there was a lot to be encouraged by. Pierce was the only running back who received a target in the game. A lot of the talk throughout the offseason was whether or not Pierce would become a 3-down back or be utilized on passing down, something that he really wasn't in year 1. So that was obviously an encouraging sign. And I just think in a positive or neutral game environment, we're going to see the Houston Texans run the ball a lot more. That game against Baltimore week 1 really got out of hand quickly. The Texans were forced to abandon the run. You just saw CJ Stroud having to throw the ball a ton. So I think we see a lot more Dameon Pierce in a game that should be a good matchup for Texans to establish the run. Also love that they're utilizing him more in the passing game as well, which is why I'm choosing to attack his rushing and receiving line versus one or the other.
All right. Next up on the board, the Los Angeles Chargers and the Tennessee Titans. And sort of I don't know if it's a stinky line.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to bet on the Titans in this game. I promise you that. Everybody wants to take the Chargers. And I'm here to tell you, let's just add it to my card.
Okay.
I'm not going to like it. I'm going to do it anyway. RJ, do you have the Titans +3 too? I was going to say the Titans +3. I think the Titans win this game outright. Tannehill looked like crap against the Saints, threw 3 picks. Mike Vrabel's a dog. Give me the Titans. I'll take the Titans. Add on the Titans as the best bet. Sorry, RJ.
Yeah, I don't know. Stop copying my paper, as Prisco
I
would say.
didn't know until I looked down. I really didn't.
You say nobody wants to take the
model is the RJ model.
Yeah, nobody wants to take the Titans. Well, it's moving down to 2.5 at some spots. It looks like it's trending that way at others where it could drop. I think people want to take the Titans, especially at 3, which is what I'm doing. Miami did not test the Chargers run defense because it didn't have to with that passing game. But the Chargers pass defense, awful in that game. And Tennessee let Tannehill throw way too much. He was the worst quarterback in week 1. You have to feature Henry, especially in this spot against the Chargers. And with as bad as Tannehill played, they still covered and they almost won the game. And that shows you what you expect from Mike Vrabel when he is an underdog. You're always going to be in the game no matter how bad your quarterback's playing. Tennessee's defense thought that they were going to look a lot better than they did last year with all the injuries they had last year, and they did. They're not terrible, especially when you got into scoring range. They gave up a lot of yards, did not give up a lot of points. So Chargers might score fewer points than people expect here. They should throw more this week with the Eckler injury, and because the Titans defense is really good against the run. So it does feel like an over game here, even at 45.5 coming off the key number. But I think the better bet is taking Tennessee +3. Have them as a best bet because they're just not going to play as bad offensively as they did last week.
Yeah, well, I agree that y'all can cover on the Titans, but I agree with RJ that they are going to throw more. Justin Herbert only had 229 passing yards last week and only threw for 1 single touchdown. His over 1.5 touchdowns was a little bit juicy, so I'm taking him over his yards, which is I believe at 283 and a half. Last season, the Titans ranked dead last in passing yards allowed, and they didn't really do a whole lot this offseason to improve that pass defense. The Saints passing attack found success last week. Derek Carr threw for 305 yards. So whether or not the Chargers win this game, I do think that the game plan is going to change a little bit, and that Herbert's going to be airing it out more. So I like him over on his passing yards.
The aforementioned Niners. Nope. I messed that one up, didn't I? You taking us to break?
Take it.
You know what?
Take it
You know
away.
what?
Take it away.
Niners
Uh-huh.
and the Rams are going to play a football game.
Hell yeah.
Katie's Niners, my Rams.
yeah.
Somebody's going to win. Somebody's going to cover. And we'll tell you who coming up after the break next.
Freddie! Surprise!
Dad!
What's going on with your son?
Wish I knew. He's got a girlfriend I've never even heard of. When I told him I wanted to spend more time with him, he said no.
It's just not a good time.
Have you considered that he hates you?
Don't sit there! Those are Christian Lacroix pillows.
So we can't sit on the couch.
Not in jeans.
So
Frazier's coming back, by the way.
Yeah, so the people listening to the podcast in audio form won't hear that, but yes,
Yeah.
Frazier coming back on Paramount Plus. Look, if you can bring Top Gun back, you can bring Frazier back.
Yeah, I'm excited.
You like Frazier?
I do like Frazier.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You guys-
Although I
you
am a
guys-
Real Housewife of Beverly Hills fan, and the way that he treated his ex-wife Camille was a little.
Oh.
Not that I like Camille either, but we don't need to go down a Real Housewives.
I don't even know what the hell you're talking about right now.
No.
I mean, I'm just not a house. You guys, RJ, you watch a lot of Housewives, right?
Yeah, looks like it.
Obviously, I have my lines on all the housewives. Camille, I'm sure there's one named Bethany somewhere.
There is. Look at RJ.
New York.
This is Housewives.
Alex, are you a Housewives guy?
I am.
Wow, what a plot twist. Are you really?
I will say
Yeah.
more men, I think because their wives and girlfriends force them to watch it, but more men know about Housewives than you would expect.
I think that's probably accurate. And I'll tell you what I've been watching lately that I like. My brother had me and my dad watch one weekend. It's a long story, but it was like weird. Like he's like firing it up at like 11 o'clock on like a Friday night when we were at my parents' house. But like I've been watching it this past week and it's fantastic. Suits.
I never got into it.
So it's like 2008, right? It's a 2008 show. It's just like cheese ball, like it's like Succession before Succession, but like back when it was like cheesy and goofy. It's on Netflix right now. It's wildly entertaining. USA Network had some heaters back in the day.
Okay.
Burn Notice. Trying to think what else. Burn Notice is a great show. Anyway, anywho,
Speaking of Burn Notice.
you're on notice, Mox. The Rams are about to put the Niners on notice. 49ers at the Rams. 49ers are -8 in this game. Was like 7-ish and ticked up to 8. I think got as high as maybe 8.5 and sort of ticked back down. There's a lot of different ways you can go with this one. I really want to take the Rams as a best bet, but because I think Sean McVay's kind of back in his bag. Matthew Stafford looked superb on last Sunday. Had plenty of time in the pocket. Rams pass protected for him. He threw some passes that only like 3 or 4 people on the planet can throw. If he's healthy, he's one of the best quarterbacks on earth. I mean, he just is. Like, that's just how good and how much arm talent he has. Puka and Tutu, obviously 2 of the most popular receivers on planet Earth. Kalen Williams, who did a great job getting in the end zone, I believe twice. The Rams and Aaron Donald was an absolute freak show. Having said all that, I ain't getting in front of this Niners truck stick, not with Kyle Shanahan owning Sean McVay. Katie, do you have several bets on this?
I do. Surprise, surprise. I have multiple bets on this game. And I know everyone's like, oh, you're just a homer. But the reality is I know more about the 49ers than any other team. So I only bet on things I feel comfortable with. Now, on Monday, I did say I lean toward the over in this full game. I'm backing away from that one. Instead, I'm going to take San Francisco team total over 26.5. It's at -120. I mean, as far as week 1 is concerned, the offense under Brock Purdy somehow is more explosive, even than it was last year. In week 1, the Niners led the NFL in 21 personnel usage. 53% of snaps had 2 running backs, 1 tight end, and 2 receivers. The league average for 21 personnel in week 1 was 8.3, and the Niners had 53%. So there's just so many different ways that this team can beat you. The Rams defense gave up 13 to Seattle, and Seattle was dealing with a lot of significant injuries to their offense. 2 out of the last 3 matchups, the Niners have put up 31 points on the Rams. The Niners are going to wear their home red jerseys to Levi South. And so, look, I think that this Rams team is better than we thought they were going to be. I'm not even laying this 8 points, even though I do think that they should be able to cover. But I feel pretty confident that the Niners can get above 26.5.
It's come down from 8 everywhere in the market. It's 7.5, and some places are throwing out 7 now. So it seems like people are back in the Rams at that huge number at home. Although the Rams, of course, don't have a great home field advantage anyway. San Francisco answered all doubts. I moved them up to tied to first in my power ratings. But the Rams showed they're not a pushover with future Hall of Famer Matthew Stafford at quarterback, one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league right now, probably. But
Easily.
For the 49ers, stopping a Matt Canada offense and stopping a Sean McVay offense is going to be very different things. We'll see if they can do that this week against. I feel for Van Jefferson, because Van Jefferson is a very cool name, and he had the coolest name in that receiver room. And then out of nowhere, Tutu Atwell shows up, and then Puka Nacua shows up, and you're just a guy. You're
like John Smith all of a sudden.
I know. And Van Jefferson's a really cool name, so I feel for that guy. And I think they're giving out fantasy targets by how cool your name is, because he did not get a look there in that game. One of my misses there was taking the over on his passing yards. Obviously, it was the right strategy. They threw all over Seahawks. He just ended up not being the receiver one like thought, and he didn't get near that number. So I think the Rams probably are the play. I love the over a lot better than the Rams, but because Stafford can just backdoor cover this number with how he looked.
Yes.
But even if San Francisco is dominating the game, so I would play the over if anything.
All right.
Propstarz, you got a go-to on my dude.
My dude as well, Brinson. I am all over this guy. It was one of our best week 1 bets. Brandon Ayuk over 57.5 receiving yards. Week 1, 8 targets, 8 receptions, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. Talk about efficiency. Unbelievable.
And an incredible block to spring Christian McCaffrey for that touchdown run.
Absolutely. I think this guy has emerged as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL for whatever reason, because he was in Shanahan's doghouse early in his career. I think these numbers are suppressed. I think he was second in the NFL week 1 in yards per route run to only Tyreek Hill. We also have a pretty significant Brock Purdy sample size, and it is painstakingly obvious to me that Ayuk is his number 1 target in this offense when everybody's healthy as well. So I love Brandon Ayuk. I think this number is going to ultimately settle in the low 60s. So yeah, I'm all over Brandon Ayuk. It's probably my favorite week 1 bet week 2 bet, so far is over 57.5 receiving yards.
I love that, Propstarz, but I also think that Christian McCaffrey's receiving yards at 27.5 is criminally low for McCaffrey. And I think it's an overreaction. He only had 17 receiving yards against the Steelers. He was utilized more as your traditional back. I do think that that's going to shift a little bit. Maybe, Shanahan gives Mitchell some more carries because Christian McCaffrey had 22 carries, 152 yards. I think maybe they'll utilize him more in the screen game, which is kind of a weakness for this Rams defense. Last year, when you look at those two games, McCaffrey had 7 receptions for 89 yards and then 8 receptions for 55 yards against the Rams. And then even just as a 49er, he averaged about 42 yards per game as a receiver and about 4 receptions. So I think that Christian McCaffrey maybe doesn't get as much usage on the ground, but this 27.5 feels a little low to me. So I'm going to take that. And then Matt Stafford to throw an interception. All right. This is just something that we know is going to happen. It's minus 150.
You're muted. We can't hear you. What'd you say?
Oh, I was like, how did I get muted? Yeah, I mean, look, it's Josh Allen and it's Matt Stafford to throw an interception. Again, there's a reason why it's minus 150. We know that Matt Stafford is great against the blitz, but his QBR drops significantly when he's not blitzed. 49ers traditionally don't blitz that much. Seems to be kind of the same under Wilkes. And, you know, he just struggles in these muddy pockets, tends to throw off target, turns the ball over. And, you know, it did take the Steelers 28 minutes and 44 seconds to get a first down.
I think that's actually a pretty good bet, unfortunately.
It's almost free money. Now, I will say he did not have an interception the last time, but other than that, it's free money.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, I don't like fading Matthew Stafford at all, obviously, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah. Well, a team that everybody wants to fade right now has got to be the New York Giants after the atrocious game that they put up on, what was that, Sunday Night Football? But they're still laying 6 against Arizona. This total 39.5. Propstarz, you're looking at Saquon Barkley here.
Yeah, I'm going to fade the Giants ground game in this, going under 74.5 rushing yards for Saquon. I was very impressed with this Cardinals front seven. Their run defense, very good against the Commanders. On 28 rushing attempts, held them to 3.3 yards per carry. Didn't allow a rush from anyone for over 7 yards. The Cardinals are also a significant pass funnel. This carried over as a trend from last season, second to only Miami as far as the biggest pass funnel in the NFL. So I think the Giants are going to come out actually with a pass-heavy game plan, see kind of Barkley more utilized as a pass catcher. I just don't think he's going to get the necessary volume that it will take to go over 75 rushing yards. A player like him, he's capable. He's explosive enough where he can get a couple big chunks. But yeah, I just think this Cardinals front seven is very good. It's the strength of their defense. We're going to see the Giants throw the ball against them primarily. I think it's going to limit a lot of the damage that Barkley does on the ground. So I'm going to fade him under 74.5 rushing yards.
This is 4.5 in the market mode for the most places. I loved it at 6. I got Arizona at 6 on Sportsline. Now we're looking at 4.5. So everybody kind of backed Arizona because why are the Giants laying that many points on the road with how their offense looked? And we don't know how, and they're not going to look that way against every defense, but the Cardinals defense really showed up in week 1, 42 second half yards allowed, not quite as good as the Rams, but still pretty good stuff there for them. The Giants offensive line is a mess with Andrew Thomas hurt at left tackle. Doesn't seem like the injury is as severe as you know, it could have been, but who knows if he plays, who knows if he's at 100% in this game. And if not, Arizona could tee off on that offensive line. We just don't really know how good the Giants are because that game got out of hand quickly. But the defense allowed just 265 yards against Dallas. Dak was 13-24, so it's not like he lit them up to the tune of what you would normally see in a 40-point game. So maybe the Giants actually have a solid defense. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. That's why I like the Cardinals at +6 in a game that was totaled at 40 at that point, because I just don't see them scoring that many points. But my lean would still be the Cardinals here at 4.5.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of hate this game just because it's like the theory on like the Giants got absolutely destroyed in week 1 and the Cardinals were frisky and hung around with Washington. Like it sort of leads you to believe, all right, like, you know, who's taking the Giants here? Like, who's laying 6 with the friggin' Giants on the road in week 2, even against the Cardinals? I don't know, man.
Well, this line, from what I'm looking at, a consensus line that's Giants -4.5 right now, it says 86% of money is on New York.
Or the money's on the Giants, right? But I'm saying like I think most people are gonna be like, I'll take the points against an Arizona team that looked better than I thought in week 1. I just think we could see the Giants, like Brian Dable, clean things up, get the ball out faster. Like everything that could go wrong went wrong for them against Dallas in that home opener. And so I don't know. I'm probably gonna stay away from it, but I would lean towards the Giants. I don't know. It's a smart move. The Dallas Cowboys hosting the New York Jets. This game was 3. Cowboys -3 at 8:15 p.m. on Monday night. By 8:20 p.m. on Monday night. This line was off the board and was up to 9 when it reopened with the news that Aaron Rodgers would not play and Zach Wilson would be going up against this Cowboys defense, RJ.
Yeah, we see some 9, some 9.5s in the market. 8.5s were out there for a while. I think forget about the spread here. Look at how low this total is, 38.5 point total. My best bet's going to be Dallas team total under 23.5 points. The Dallas defense just exploited Giants' offensive line issues. The Jets tackles might be the same story. I'm not confident the Jets can score enough points to cover, even if the Dallas isn't scoring that many. So I didn't want to play the Jets plus 9.5. But their offense got great field position. Didn't have to do much against the Giants, like I was saying earlier. The Jets defense gave up 24 points or more just once in their last 14 games in 2022. Once Sauce Gardner got into the mix and the rookies got into the mix there, it was a good night for just about every single team. The one that didn't was the Vikings, and it's not like they played that well in that game. My only worry is that the Dallas defense scores a touchdown here and puts this one over the total. Otherwise, I think this stays under against an elite Jets defense. Love taking Dallas team total under 23.5.
Yeah, I mean the Cowboys
didn't impress me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Dallas offense didn't impress me, and I think that they'll be really conservative against a very good Jets defense, trying to make sure that like we're going to run the ball, not let Dak make mistakes. You're not going to throw the ball down the field, get the easy completions, punt when you got to, and just force Zach Wilson to try to beat you. And because if the Bills had done that, they win that football game. Like if the Bills just hadn't forced the ball downfield, hadn't made the mistakes, hadn't had the turnovers, they win the football game just because the Jets won't score. Elsewhere in NFC East news, the Washington Commanders head to Denver to take on the Denver Broncos and the mighty Russell Wilsons, who did not look very good.
Mighty.
It is easy as mighty. It is sure is easy to suggest that everyone and their brother will be taking Washington plus 3.5 here. Washington didn't look fantastic, but man, the Broncos, people are just off the Broncos, and laying 3.5 with Denver, RJ, feels a little dangerous.
Yeah, they have a great home field advantage early. Somehow wasn't enough to beat what's probably going to be a bad Raiders team. So I don't know what the offensive philosophy was coming into this game. They did not throw downfield. They looked like Atlanta with Desmond Ridder at quarterback. That's how scared they were to let Russ Wilson throw. And maybe that's smart because we saw what he looked like on his deep passes last year, and they just did not want to do that. But no plays over 21 yards, I think, in that game. Lombardi's offense, that could be the influence of that. We know that we were always complaining about the Chargers with Lombardi and that they wouldn't throw downfield, and that's exactly what we saw here with Russ. So maybe it's good if they do that long term and he can't make those passes anymore, but it sure does make the offense easy to defend, which is what the Raiders found out. Sam Howell honeymoon already over, 3.8 yards per play against the Cardinals isn't going to get it done. This is going to be a 3 or 4 point game either way, which I think why everybody sees there's value taking the dog, hoping it's a 3-point game in Washington, or the Broncos lose by 3.
Yeah, Sam Howell killed me in fantasy. All right, looking at the Dolphins.
He ran for a score there.
Yeah, but
not great.
Well, Josh Allen was the worst thing. Anyways, Dolphins laying 3 at New England. Now, this is one of the 2 bets that I hit last week, was taking the Dolphins as a dog money line against the Chargers last week, and I think the New England Patriots maybe surprised a lot of people for how well they were able to contain the Eagles. I mean, obviously we knew that this was going to be a good defense, but I think they're even just a little bit tougher than we thought. Brinson, you're taking the Pats though here, plus the 3.
Yeah, I love the Pats in this spot. Miami's really good. Offense is fantastic. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, incredible football players. The Chargers defense just might stink. And that's a big problem for Brandon Staley because congrats. You turned like Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson, Rashawn Slater, Donald Parham into a good offense. Congrats. Why does your defense stink? You're a defensive coach, and you've got a bunch of really good defensive players on this team. Why does your defense stink? They got torched by the Dolphins passing offense. I think you'll see Miami get slowed down a little bit. They were really Miami kind of felt like it came alive too in the second half. And I think New England, Bill Belichick's still a mastermind, if you will. Taylor Swift shout out on the defensive side of the ball. I thought their defense looked fantastic against Philadelphia. And in my opinion, the Pats are an underrated team right now, particularly when it comes to the playoff race because Aaron Rodgers' injury. And I think both teams have to know this is a massive game for the AFC East and for the AFC as a whole, because if you win this game with Buffalo 0-1, like all of a sudden you could end up in a situation where everybody's 1-1 in the AFC East, and the Jets don't have Aaron Rodgers, and like that's a completely different landscape than we thought that we'd have before. I think the Pats are underrated by the market. I'm guessing RJ does too.
Yeah, the Dolphins got credit for having an elite offense, which we knew they had when Tua was healthy. They had that last year. The Patriots didn't get credit for anything. And even though they probably should have beat the Eagles and gave me another loss on my best bets because I had Philly -4 and do not feel like I deserve to get that win because of how well New England played in that game, defensively and offensively. I mean, Mac Jones played really well in that game, had 35-something completions or something like that. Philly ended -3.5 in that game by the time the number closed there. Now we're saying that the Dolphins are only a half point worse than Philly. I don't buy that. Tua was incredible, but the defense for New England showed hints of being elite. They're a lot better now. Christian Gonzalez now on the field. I trust them a lot more. I already trust them coming into the season. Had questions about the offense. They look pretty good there. Philly's offense, just 1 touchdown drive, 4.1 yards per play, while the offensive line for New England held up against this elite Philly defense. I know some guys were getting back in the backfield, but it's not like they snuffed out the passing game at all. Mac Jones still had his stats there. Run game wasn't there for New England in week 1. Miami just gave up 234 rushing yards. The run game is probably going to be there for New England, make their offense a little more dynamic. So Mac Jones isn't going to have to do as much this week. So yeah, I think New England wins this game. I think this line should probably be closer to pick them. And because New England just did not get the same credit that Miami got coming out of last week.
Propstars, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think it's Ramondre Stevenson's season. I think this is a spot where New England can definitely establish the run. Really has had a hard time getting him going week 1 against that Eagles front that played very well. But again, RJ mentioned how many rushing yards they gave up against the Chargers. The Chargers aren't even known as a good running team either. Austin Eckler went over 100 yards. Joshua Kelly nearly 100 yards as well. So I think we'll see a lot of Ramondre Stevenson in this spot. I think it sets up really nicely for a big individual game from him.
I agree with that. By the way, just worth noting, the Dolphins last year scored a combined 41 points in 2 games against the Patriots defense. Ooh. So like, and 7 of those came at the end of the half in that first game with like 8 seconds left on a 4th and 8, where instead of punting the ball and just like let Belichick take a knee, Mike McDaniel threw a quick slant to Jalen Waddle, who took it to the house. So like the Patriots, like I know Tua technically has Belichick's number or whatever in terms of the record that he has against him, but like, with Mike McDaniel's offense, like holding them to that many points in 2 games last year says something about Belichick and his ability to coach against this Mike McDaniel defense. So I think that too makes me a little confident in the Pats.
It's going to be a fun one. All right, this is going to commence our week 2 pick show. Hopefully we all bounce back to a little bit better than week 1. Make sure you join us for more NFL coverage on Sunday with the Super Friends as they recap the Sunday slate of games. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube page. If you're listening to the audio version only, download, follow, leave a 5-star review, and tell your friends to listen and watch the pod. I will see you next Monday. Brinson will see you on Sunday.